The surveillance camera that didn't blink. A perfect alibi starts to rot under artificial light and missing seconds. Hey, night listener. Tonight, we enter the shadows. Rain slicks the pavement, catching the dim glare of a crooked street lamp like spilled mercury. You hear footsteps echoing behind you, measured, intentional, like someone tracing yours, but just half a beat behind. Inside your coat pocket, your fingers find the old skeleton key, the one they never collected as evidence, the one that still fits a lock nobody talks about anymore. If this story found you, maybe it's because you've been followed too. So, before we vanish into this mystery, like the video and subscribe only if you can handle the truth buried beneath the lies. Tell me where you're listening from tonight and what pulls you closer, the thrill, the truth, or the justice. Now lock your doors, take a deep breath, and follow me into the dark. The tape begins at 7:38 p.m. That's the moment his alibi crystallized, the one the court believed, the one the jury rested on like gospel. The camera is mounted above the liquor store, wide angle, grainy, but clear enough. You watch him step into frame, hood up, neutral stride. He enters the store, grabs a bottle of whiskey, stands in line. The timestamp reads 7:39:17. He checks out 2 minutes later, 7:41:09. He's on the receipt. Clear, unarguable. Meanwhile, the body is found across town at 7:45 and declared dead by 7:50. No chance, the court said. Not unless he teleported. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Because even then, something didn't sit right. You replay the footage. Once, twice, then 10 more times. At the 23rd replay, you notice it. The second hand never moves. The digital timestamp counts forward. Yes, but the second hand on the store wall clock, stuck at 12. Every frame, tick, 12, tick, 12. Time doesn't tick when it's faked. You pause the tape, freeze frame his reflection in the glass door. There's another figure behind him, just barely like a ghost, a glint of a watch, a hint of something familiar. You lean closer and realize the face isn't quite right. The eyes aren't him. There's someone wearing him. The hoodie is identical, but the body beneath it, thinner, nervous, acting. The real man was elsewhere, not in that store, but his double was. It was never about the truth. It was about control and the camera. That was the first lie, the kind that only works when no one checks the little things, like second hands. Everyone lies, especially the ones who trust surveillance to see what they want. A street lamp that was supposed to be broken. The first inconsistency flickers to life on a corner no one noticed. It's just a lamp, an old sodium bulb on a crooked post, humming like a bad memory. You remember it always being outburned, busted, marked on your precinct's repair backlog for 6 months straight. But that night, it wasn't dark. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Because when you reviewed the liquor store footage the first time, the sidewalk was flooded in yellow-orange light, enough to cast a full-body shadow when the man in the hoodie walked by. But it wasn't supposed to cast anything. You file a maintenance request check. The city logs say the lamp was marked non-operational, awaiting part delivery. Last inspected 2 days prior to the murder. No update, no work order, no change, yet it was clearly on. So someone fixed it without telling the city. Or more likely, someone rigged it to look fixed. You visit the location yourself. The pole is rusted. Panel open at the base. Inside, spliced wires. A small remote-operated power cell tucked into a plastic bag. And the unmistakable hum of temporary current. This wasn't a repair, it was a stage light. The crime scene 10 blocks away was dark, but the alibi's setting bright, visible, documented, manufactured clarity. It was never about the truth, it was about control. You step back, stare up at the flickering bulb, and then you see it. The camera, not the stores, a smaller one mounted inside the lamppost, hidden just beneath the lip, battery powered, motion activated. You pull it down, back in your garage. You dump the footage. The feed doesn't just show the man in the hoodie walking toward the liquor store. It shows him stopping, looking behind him, then reaching into his coat and handing something, a folded note, to someone waiting just out of frame, frame by frame. You catch the reflection in a nearby car window. A woman, tall, angular, holding a phone to her ear. You freeze the image. You don't recognize the face, but the ring catches your attention. Silver, snake-shaped, coiled twice, a stone set into its head. You've seen it before, worn by a journalist who covered the trial obsessively. Too obsessively. You dig up her name, Kendra Vale. She never mentioned being near the scene, never testified. But you find a photo of her at a fundraiser 3 weeks earlier. Same hand, same ring, same eyes. You replay the lamppost footage. There, in the last frame, before it cuts, she looks up, right into the camera, and smiles. Everyone lies, especially the ones who make a career out of telling the story. Just not all of it. The woman in the red coat who never testified. A forgotten bystander resurfaces, and nothing she saw was accidental. You revisit the precinct evidence wall, the photos from bystanders, the wide shots from traffic cams, the cell phone footage that trickled in before the narrative locked. In the fourth image, taken just 3 minutes before the call reporting the murder, you see her. Red coat, scarlet wool, high collar, and the unmistakable blur of urgency in her step. She's walking away from the alley, where the body would soon be found. Head down, purse tight to her side. But there's something off. She's not running. She's too calm. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because the red coat didn't fit the pattern. Everyone else that night was in neutrals, hoodies, denim, shadows. She stood out like a drop of blood on snow. You cross-reference the time. Santana 42 p.m. That puts her within 200 feet of the murder scene 3 minutes before the estimated time of death. You zoom in on the photo. Her eyes are turned toward the alley, but it's the reflection in the glass of the shop window she passes that breaks everything open. There's a man standing in the mouth of the alley, face blurred, but posture unmistakable. It's him, the accused. The same coat, the same height, but this time no hoodie. And now the timeline fractures, because if he was at the liquor store, framed by fluorescent lights and checkout receipts at 7:41, how could he be here on foot just 1 minute later? He couldn't, but someone could make it look that way. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You run the image through enhancement filters. The red-coated woman's face sharpens just enough, and something clicks. You saw her once before on a police ride-along. She was part of a neighborhood watch committee. Introduced herself as May Delaney. You dig deeper. Her real name, Margot Wayne. Background in stage production, specialty in costuming, frequent contractor for freelance surveillance teams. You find a reel she submitted to a private security agency years old, buried on Vimeo. In the demo, her signature red coat. A nod to misdirection. She says in the voiceover, people always watch the red. They forget what's behind it. You call the number on her old resume. Disconnected. But that night's emergency call, flagged as anonymous, was placed from a payphone 2 blocks from her last known address. You find the phone booth, carved into its metal side a crude spiral, familiar. Same spiral on the victim's wrist tattoo, a meaningless symbol in the case file. Until now, everyone lies, especially the ones who dress the stage, then vanish before the curtain drops. A photograph with no one behind the lens. A candid shot reveals a reflection and someone who shouldn't have been there. You find the photo pinned to the case file like it means nothing, labeled Civic Center Lot B, night of. A parking garage still shot, taken from the roof of a nearby building by a tourist who liked nighttime skylines. Irrelevant, they said. Artistic noise. A backdrop with no subject. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because even art can catch ghosts. The photo is time-stamped, 7:46 is p.m., the exact minute the 911 call came in. In the lower right corner, you spot a sliver of chrome, a parked sedan, clean enough to mirror the surrounding lot. You enhance the image. Then again, the reflection in the chrome shows a man standing just behind the alley gate. He's not the body, and he's not the accused. Different build, broader shoulders, stiffer stance. His face is barely visible, but it's watching, not running, not surprised, just waiting. The photo was taken from 3 stories up. No one noticed. No one thought to look at the car, much less the edge of its bumper. You checked the lot's layout that night. That vehicle? It wasn't in the city registry. Untraceable. A ghost car, parked just long enough to reflect something it shouldn't have seen. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You pull case photos of the crime scene, reframe them. The alley gate is propped open at a narrow angle, too narrow for a person to squeeze through, unless it was staged that way. And the body faced away from the gate, positioned for a camera, a viewer, like it was meant to be watched. You find another photo in the sequence, one taken seconds later. This one has more light bleeding through the top, and there, centered in the frame, is a lens flare, but not from the tourist's camera, from something lower. Another camera. Someone was filming the alley from the parking lot. You follow the angles. It would have had a perfect line of sight through the gate, across the body, to the other side of the street where the red-coated woman had walked. One continuous shot, a performance, not a panic. You pull police security clearance records. There were no active permits for filming in that district that night. But a request was submitted, 1 week prior, filed under a corporate shell company linked to Sebastian Vale, Kendra Vale's brother, producer, former documentarian, disgraced for faking scenes in a war zone. You piece it together like shattered glass. A fake alibi, a second actor in costume, a woman in red leading the viewer's eye, and a man behind the lens. Everyone lies, especially the ones who never appear on camera, because they're the ones calling action. The tape recorder that rewound itself, evidence reviewed too many times, begins to say something new. The evidence locker still smells like dust and failed promises. You have to sign 3 waivers just to touch the old cassette player, labeled Item 28, 9111, Call Archive, Cassette Transfer. You'd nearly forgotten about it. The department switched to digital years ago, but one of the first responders, an old-school type, transferred all emergency call audio to analog. In case the servers get wiped, he said. That guy died last year. You press play. The tape whirs. That soft mechanical churn like a memory being ground into motion. The dispatcher's voice. Then static. Then 911. What's your emergency? A woman. Shaky. Practiced. There's a man. I think he's dead. in the alley off 12th. Standard. Until it isn't. At 0027 there's a background sound. A click. A mechanical tick. A voice. Very faint. You loop it. Enhance. Roll again. She didn't fall right. You freeze. You rewind. Play it back. Same voice. Same line. Buried under her panic. Roll again. She didn't fall right. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You rewind again. This time, the tape doesn't stop. It keeps rewinding and rewinding until it clicks. Back to zero. But instead of silence, there's something else. A voice, his voice. The accused, talking, laughing, practicing lines. You think it was real enough? Another voice, female. You paused too long after I didn't see him. Shortened the beat. The cassette wasn't just a recording of the emergency call. It was overdubbed. Someone reused a rehearsal tape, covered it up, layered panic over performance, but not well enough. You flip the tape over. Side B, another session. This one quieter, uneven pacing, a clock ticking in the background. You listen, and something tears open inside your chest. The voice on this side isn't hers. It's the victim's, recorded weeks before his death, arguing, "This is going too far. If you air it, we're both done." A pause. Then, you forget who owns the footage. You press pause because you recognize the voice responding to him from the court coverage, from the media interviews, from the film festival panel last year. Sebastian Vale, the producer who never made a real documentary. Everyone lies, especially the ones who edit reality down to fit a runtime. The text message that arrived after the arrest. Timestamp betrayal turns airtight alibi into a leaking lie. You're going through Sarah's old phone again, not the one she handed over. The one they found in the storage locker 3 months later. The backup device. The one her lawyer claimed was forgotten. But forgotten phones don't have deleted texts dated after someone's arrest. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Because the message is there, recovered from a cached autosave. It doesn't show up in the standard text log, only in the memory bleed of a factory reset glitch. The timestamp to 12, Os M, the morning after the accused was booked and fingerprinted. The sender ID is scrambled, likely a spoofed number, but the message is chilling in its precision. Make sure the window faces east. We'll shoot again at sunrise. This time, no cops. There's no reply. But buried 2 messages later is a photo. Grainy, blurry, cropped. A window. And just visible, in the corner, a silhouette. It's the accused, or someone wearing his shape. But that can't be. He was in holding. There's a paper trail, a guard log, even security footage from the drunk tank confirming he didn't leave the precinct, which means one of 2 things. Either the system was faked, or he has a double. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You run the number through a database scrubber. It leads to a burner phone purchased under an alias, E. Marlowe. You recognize the name. A character from a short film directed by Sebastian Vale, years before the trial. A private detective unraveling a murder staged for the camera. The connections aren't coincidental. They're rehearsed. You check the image metadata. GPS coordinates point to a hotel on the east side, room 307, overlooking an alley. The same alley where the murder occurred. You check guest logs. Room 307 was rented that night under a corporate card belonging to Valeworks Media. Signed by Kendra Vale. The window faces east. The timestamp on the photo in 43 a.m. Exactly 12 hours after the murder. Same scene, same setup, different light. You look closer. The silhouette in the photo is holding something, a script. You zoom in. The title page reads Act 2 Testimony. Everyone lies, especially the ones who call the crime a story and keep writing even after the credits roll. The glove that didn't belong to either man. A piece of clothing resurfaces but doesn't match any known timeline. The glove had been logged, then dismissed, found near the body, caught under a storm drain lip, too far from the struggle. They said, no blood, no prints, not the accused's size, and not the victim's either. A dead end. You request it anyway. The evidence text size disappears into the back room, returns with a zip bag that might as well have cobwebs stitched into the corners. Inside a black leather glove, slim fit, creased at the knuckle, worn but not torn. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Because the tag inside reads Prod Unit A 004. It's not a brand, it's a prop label. You run the number against online archives, focusing on indie productions filmed locally in the last 5 years. One match, a student film, title, Perfect Alibi, directed by Sebastian Vale. You watch it, bad lighting, amateur blocking, but the glove, exact match, worn by a character who stages his own alibi using lookalikes and planted evidence, too on the nose to ignore. You dig deeper. The film's credits list a costumer Margot Vane, the woman in the red coat. The production was shut down mid-shoot after a financing dispute, but the props not returned. The glove never logged. So how did it end up at your crime scene? You watch the final shot of the unfinished film. It's from the victim's perspective. Hand reaching out. Blood off screen. A single black glove pulling back out of frame. The camera lingers just a second too long on the same brick wall as the alley where the body was found. Same wall. Same smear of graffiti. It wasn't a new murder. It was a reshoot. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You stare at the photo of the glove in your hand. Same wear pattern. Same missing stitch at the base of the thumb. You check the evidence record again. The glove was logged at 2:17 a.m. by Officer Donalds. But Officer Donalds was off duty that night, on leave for rotator cuff surgery. So who logged it? You trace the initials beside the signature. S.V. Not Sebastian. Sage Vale, the youngest Vale sibling. Intern at the station for exactly 2 weeks. Vanished a day after the glove was logged. No forwarding address. No goodbye. Everyone lies. Especially the ones who enter your story just long enough to hand you the wrong ending. The witness who couldn't blink, trauma or deception, a silent man becomes the loudest crack in the story. He didn't speak during the trial, didn't nod, didn't cry, didn't even blink, at least not when it counted. He sat like a statue in the gallery row, third seat from the left, hands folded over a notebook he never opened. You remember thinking he was just another grief-stricken nobody, a background mourner. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because someone that still isn't grieving, they're calculating. You track him down through courtroom security footage. His name is Elias Dunn, no relation to the victim, no mention in any police interview, not subpoenaed, not cross-referenced, but he was present at every court date, logged through the visitor entrance, same seat, same clothes, same dead-eyed stare. You zoom in on an image taken on day 3 of the trial. His hands are in frame. The left thumb has a faint red smudge. You enhance, grease paint, stage makeup, and suddenly your mind floods with memories from the surveillance footage at the liquor store. The man in the hoodie, his skin tone seemed just slightly off, almost painted. You review every image of Elias you can find. He's always clean shaven, always indoors, never photographed under natural light. He's hiding something. So, you find his old ID and expired actor's union card under a different name, Noel Shaw. You look up the alias. Dozens of small roles in low budget thrillers, mockumentaries, experimental stage dramas, always credited as Man, Witness, Detective Number 2. In one clip, he's even wearing a red hoodie, and in another, you find a cast photo. In the background, Kendra Vale, her hand on his shoulder. It was never about the truth, it was about control. You visit the building where he lives now. Quiet, sparse, surveillance free. His mailbox is stuffed with junk mail addressed to 5 different names. The intercom crackles as you press the button. No answer. Then your phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. You're almost there, but you're still watching the shows. Attached is a photo. Elias, seated in the courtroom. But the photo is taken from the stand, from the victim's point of view, which means whoever sent it was on the inside, on trial, or pretending to be. Everyone lies, especially the ones who never blink, because blinking is the first sign you're still human. The script page. That wasn't fiction. A crumpled draft uncovers a confession no one meant to read. You find it by accident, stuffed inside a manila folder labeled Unused Media Coverage, wedged behind 3 identical press statements from the Vale Foundation. A single page, coffee-stained, half-folded, torn along the top edge like it had been yanked from a binder. Header reads, Vale Works, Draft 7, Seen the Lie That Works. You smooth it out. Standard format. Character names in bold. Dialogue in courier. But something isn't right. The lines aren't written like drama. They're too specific, too real. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Because the scene's location, alley behind 12th and Marlowe, the exact murder site. Time of day, 7:44 p.m. Character QK glances down at the body, hand shaking. Blood not hers. You pause. Read it again. K. There was no character named K in the case, but there was a person. Kendra. You scan to the end of the page. Stage direction. She drops the glove. Intentional. Not accidental. Camera follows her backlit silhouette through the gate. And then a line of dialogue. Unspoken in court, but now screaming between the lines. No one has to know. He already agreed to take the fall. No attribution, just written plainly. No initials, no cue. But the final stage direction chills you. Scene ends with wide shot. Use the red coat. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You scan the document for anything that could prove it's just a scene. A date, a watermark, a registration. You find none. But in the margin, scribbled in pen, real version equals tighter. Trim the blood. Replace the scream. As if they'd rehearsed it once and it was too authentic. You run a handwriting match against known samples. Closest match. Sebastian Vale's trial notebook. Same loop on the R. Same crossed out flourish on the T. You return to the evidence bag with the glove. Inside, hidden in the seam, a piece of paper. Tiny, folded into fourths. You use tweezers to pull it free. It's a line from the same script page. What they see is what they believe. Everyone lies. Especially the ones who call their crimes rehearsals before they commit them for real. The sound that wasn't in the original. An audio tick resurfaces, and it's no accident this time. You revisit the surveillance audio from the liquor store, the one that cemented the accused's alibi. In it, he enters, nods to the clerk, buys a bottle of water, and cracks a joke about the weather. It's mundane, boring, bulletproof, until you hear the click. It's faint, nestled between the sound of the register beeping and the door chime ringing as he walks out. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because that click doesn't belong. Not with the ambient sound, not with the rhythm of the tape, and certainly not with reality. You isolate the noise, run it through an audio spectrogram, and what reveals itself is unmistakable. It's the sound of a film, slayed, the kind used to sync audio and video in production. Scene clapper, manual, distinct. You go still, because that means someone wasn't just recording surveillance. They were directing it. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You re-watch the footage, this time paying close attention to the angles. The store's usual camera is mounted at the back corner, angled wide toward the counter. But the footage you've been reviewing, it's lower, closer, framed. You scroll to the store's internal log camera. 2 was offline that day, but the file you've been given is marked as camera 2, clean. The store's manager confirms they only had 1 working camera. Anything labeled otherwise was an insert likely added after the fact. You find a frame where the accused looks directly at the lens, just for a second, but it's too conscious, too placed, like someone gave him the cue. Look here, say the line. You pause the video, re-watch his exit, and spot something in the convex security mirror above the door. Not the reflection of the man, but of someone else, off to the side, holding something long and narrow, a boom mic. Your stomach drops. You rerun the audio, this time under waveform analysis. There's no ambient noise beyond what's expected, none of the natural clutter a busy street should have. It's been scrubbed, cleaned, filtered, engineered. You pull a copy of the raw feed from the clerk's personal backup system buried on an ancient thumb drive, the one file no one bothered with because it was glitchy and corrupted. Except it's not corrupted. It's real. In the original feed, the man doesn't crack a joke. He doesn't even speak. He walks in, grabs a bottle, keeps his head down, says nothing, pays in cash, leaves. Everyone lies, especially the ones who write the audio after the scene is already over. The face in the crowd you've seen before. A background extra becomes the centerpiece of everything. You're reviewing stills from the courthouse protest the day before the verdict. Just another wave of signs, angry faces, chant-ready slogans. But in one photo, snapped by a local journalist and buried in the non-evidentiary folder, you see him, second row, hood up, face half lit, but not hidden, because you've seen that face before. Not in the courtroom, not in the case files, but in the script binder from the unfinished Whaleworks short film Perfect Alibi. In the storyboard frames, he's labeled Man in Crowd, Plant Number 1. His role to be seen, then forgotten. A decoy, a placement. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Because the illusion only works if the audience believes every extra is just background noise. But this man is in 4 different locations across the investigation. Liquor store footage, funeral photos, court protest, and a shadow in the window of the apartment above the crime scene. Always the same coat, always the same position, slightly right of center, as if framed. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You enhance the funeral photo. In the corner of the frame, someone's holding a folded piece of paper. You zoom in. It's the same line from the rehearsal script. He agreed to take the fall, folded neatly into a triangle, like a calling card. You run facial recognition on the man in the hoodie. No state ID matches, but one hit pops in a casting directory for silent extras. No name, just a codename Ghostface 4A, hired 6 times under Veilworks Media, always uncredited, always non-speaking, always placed in crowd scenes involving staged reality events, flash mobs, branded hoaxes, performance art. You call the casting company. They confirmed the last time Ghostface 4A was booked was the week before the murder, paid in cash, signed out with initials KV. Everyone lies, especially the ones who make sure the real suspects never face the front of the stage. The clock that always reads, or a broken timepiece starts ticking again when you press too hard. The crime scene photos show a detail that once meant nothing. A small analog clock, mounted above the alley's gated back door, rusted, water damaged. The kind you'd expect above a service exit. Every image shows the same time, 7:44 p.m. The coroner logged the time of death as between 7:43 and 7:46. So the assumption was easy dead clock, symbolic coincidence. Except when you return to the scene, the clock is missing. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because broken things don't usually vanish, not unless they weren't broken to begin with. You search the precinct's discard inventory. Nothing. You ask the building owner, an elderly man with a hacking cough and little patience. But when you show him the photo, his brow furrows. That clock, he mutters, didn't come with the property. Production crew put it up for a shoot last year. Said it was set dressing. You pause. A shoot? He shrugs. One of those faux docu things. Girls in trench coats. Some guy bleeding in the snow. I dunno. You show him another picture. The victim. He leans in. Squints. That him, I think so. Didn't die here though. It was fake. For a movie. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You visit the building's basement, where props and tools from that shoot were supposedly left behind. In the corner, under a tarp, you find it. The clock, hands frozen at 7:44. But when you lift it, it ticks, soft, subtle, alive. You flip it over. Taped to the back is a strip of lined paper, written in thick black marker, Act 2, Scene 1. The moment the lie becomes real. You check the battery. Still good, still powering something, which means it had to be manually set, a ticking illusion of time, fixed to the very moment the story needed to crystallize. You flip through the photos again. One image, from an officer's phone, captures a flare of light against the clock's glass surface. You enhance the reflection. A camera rig, a boom mic, and standing beside them, just out of frame, Kendra Vale, smiling. Everyone lies, especially the ones who know exactly what time the lie needs to begin. The journal entry, dated tomorrow. A timeline rupture reveals the murder was scheduled before it happened. You don't expect to find it inside the filing cabinet behind the clerk's desk, tucked under a stack of outdated visitor passes and old paper clips. It's a notebook, black moleskin, cracked leather, no label. You open it. The handwriting is tight, meticulous, date-stamped entries, some marked draft, others simply note. But one page near the middle seizes your pulse. The date reads March 22nd, but the murder occurred on March 21st. You blink. It isn't a typo. The rest of the entries flow in chronological order. This one is the outlier, the anomaly, the warning bell. No one rang. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because sometimes we want the illusion of sequence more than we want the truth. The entry reads, post-mortem shots wrapped clean. Redcoat walked on cue. Alibi holds. Must update edit with final scream We'll dub it later. Still need alternate footage from the roof in case the alley angle collapses. Reminder, rehearse courtroom reactions. Practice second tier. It's written like a diary, but functions like a production memo. And at the bottom, initials KV. You flip back. The earlier entries feel less clinical. Need to test how far she'll go. Can't rely on him much longer. He flinches every time we mention blood. Rewrite opening. The real twist is she believes it. You search the paper itself. Embedded watermark. Veilworks legal pad. Custom printed. Not available in stores. And Namoke, one phrase stands out. Underlined and circled at the top of the March 20 scheme. Entry. Only one of them knows this isn't a performance. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You trace the page number. 67. The last entry is number 74. But pages 68 through 73 ripped out. You pull the notebook closer. Use a forensic light to scan the pressure indents. Some letters peek through. Make sure the body lands clean. Film from both angles. If he chokes, cut. Don't stop. Even if he screams for real, everyone lies, especially the ones who write tomorrow's tragedy into today's alibi. The missing scene. They never filmed but happened anyway. A vanished entry in the storyboard becomes the most incriminating act of all. The production notes from Perfect Alibi are spread across your desk like spilled cards from a rigged deck. Each sheet contains timestamps, shot descriptions, camera angles, emotional beats. Scene 1. Introduction. Scene 2. Body discovery. Scene 3. Morning montage. Scene 4. Alibi solidification. Scene 5. Police confusion. Scene 6. There is no scene 6. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Because the notes jump straight from chapter 5 to 7. And yet every other page references scene 6. Scene 7 begins immediately after the rooftop reveal in scene 6. Scene 8. Tone must match the collapse of trust in scene 6. Scene 9 echoes. The breakdown initiated by scene 6's confession. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You run a document recovery on the project drive used by Veilworks. Most folders are empty, deleted, bleached. But one text file lingers in the metadata. A ghost without a file name. You extract it. It reads like this: scene 6. She finds the footage. The real footage. Not what they cut for the docuseries. The rehearsal version. The one where he dies twice. Once in practice. Once for real. She confronts them. The others pretend they knew all along. But she didn't. Her scream is unscripted. We keep it. You stare at that last line. We keep it. That's the moment the performance stopped being pretend. You trace the backup file's creation date. March 15, 6 days before the murder. It was already decided. Scene 6 wasn't missing. It was censored because someone screamed too loudly, too honestly. And that kind of truth, it ruins endings. You return to the rehearsal footage. Fast forward. Pause. At the 42-minute mark, there's a brief glitch, a second of static. Then her face. Kendra. Her mouth open in horror. Her hands shaking. Her eyes wide, not acting. Raw. Animal. Real. She didn't know he was actually going to fall. That wasn't her scene. That was his. And she was caught inside it. Everyone lies. Especially the ones who realize too late that they were never part of the script. They were the story being told. The location that didn't exist until the crime matched it. A set blueprint becomes a real-world murder map. You're scanning through Veilworks' digital location scout archives. Most are mundane abandoned warehouses, run-down diners, empty fields staged to look lonely. But one folder catches your eye. It's labeled Stage 9, Controlled Access Only. Inside, a single image, a floor plan, top down, no address, no title, just a name in the corner, the Fall Room. It shows a rectangular space with a narrow corridor, a metal door, a stairwell, and an overhead skylight. Scribbled on the margins, blood packs here, and light from above echoes reveal moment. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because it looks eerily familiar. You compare it with the coroner's photos of the crime scene. Measurements match, angles match. The skylight, the position of the fire escape, even the stack of bricks by the rusted dumpster, it's identical. But the site doesn't officially exist. Not in city plans, not in rental agreements, not in permit logs. So how did the murder happen inside a location that was never real? You overlay the blueprint with drone imagery of the alleyway. Perfect alignment. The location was built, not found. It was never about the truth, it was about control. You track the contractor watermark on the bottom right of the blueprint. RCM Stage Co. You call them. They hesitate, then transfer you. The project manager confirms yes. They constructed a temporary stage for an immersive theater piece months ago. Rented for 1 week, paid in cash. Client listed as V Studios. The build was supposed to be for a live action performance, but the final night cancelled. No refunds requested. You ask for site photos. They send 3. In the third, standing beside the fire escape Kendra. Her coat isn't red this time. It's black. No makeup. Just her and a clipboard. She's holding something. A stopwatch. The time 7:44 p.m. The same moment, the clock froze. The same timestamp on the fake surveillance footage. The same mark scripted into the deleted scene. You zoom in again. There's a chalk X on the ground position marker for the actor's fall. But that's not what arrests you. It's the words written beside it. Faint. Scribbled. Only one of us survives this. Everyone lies. Especially the ones who build their stage around the fall and never stick around to see who lands. The voice that shouldn't be on the tape. A final line of dialogue never spoken aloud breaks the illusion. You return to the original field audio from the alleged Courtroom documentary footage. The mic captures background chatter, the scrape of shoes, a judge's gavel, the gentle hush of a bailiff requesting silence. It's normal, expected. But 2 seconds before the scene ends, there it is, a voice, faint, not in the room, not even part of the setup. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because voices recorded on top of silence are always ghosts or worse, editors. You isolate the moment, filter out background, enhance what's beneath the legal ambience. And there, clear now, cut it. She's cracking. Replace her with the earlier take. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You run the waveform against known voices in the production team. Not Kendra, not Sebastian, not Elias. The match comes back to someone never credited. Marlo Ray, a voice coach, former sound editor for experimental stage theater, banned from union productions for manipulating actor performances, post-recording editing their delivery digitally until nothing was real anymore. You find his archived demo reel online, halfway through. He overlays 4 different monologues from 4 different people, all made to sound like one cohesive internal monologue. It's convincing, too convincing. You scrub back to the courtroom audio. You find something chilling. Each reaction from Kendra during the final hearing, her gasp, her whispered, "I knew it." Her shaky sob repeats. Exact phrasing, exact breath, identical waveform shape. She didn't say them during the hearing. They were dubbed in later, reused from rehearsals. You locate the original, uncut footage stored on a redundant archive server. Kendra never flinched, never gasped, never even looked surprised when the verdict dropped. She was stone still, unmoved, watching, as if she'd seen this exact ending already. Everyone lies, especially the ones who press play on your reaction before you've even felt the emotion. The contract that wasn't for a film, a signed agreement outlines something far darker than fiction. You finally obtain a hard copy of the Veilworks internal ledger, the black budget contract binder, unearthed through a quietly leaked tip from someone who used to be on the inside. It's heavy, slick with redacted lines and binding dust, the kind of artifact meant to be forgotten, not read. The tab reads Special Projects, Consent Forms. At first glance, it's standard release language, image use, audio rights, performance waiver. But the signatures are wrong. Not actor aliases, not stage names, real names, names from the case file. Sebastian Vale, Kendra Vale, Elias Dunn, and another name, Rowan Fisk, the victim. His signature is scrawled, dated 2 weeks before his death. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because no one signs away their life unless they think they're just performing. The contract is titled Immersive Autopsy, Concept and Ownership Agreement. Beneath it, in bold, all participant responses, reactions, physical and emotional outputs become the sole intellectual property of Veilworks Media, regardless of outcome or final disposition. Then, this agreement waives all liability for death, psychological trauma, or permanent memory distortion incurred during unscripted narrative immersion. Unscripted narrative immersion. It was never about the truth. It was about control. And it wasn't a film. It was a live experience. A murder designed with participation, not just performance. You flip to the final page of the contract, a section marked Termination Clause. The fine print reads, should any participant disrupt narrative continuity by deviating from assigned reactions or triggering undesired outcomes, production reserves the right to execute a dramatic resolution in real time. This event will be recorded and archived. Execute, not simulate, not stage. Execute, a production with the power to end its own cast. You turn the page, a postscript, handwritten, initialed KV. He said he wanted to feel something real, so we gave it to him. Everyone lies, especially the ones who sign their roles in blood, then keep the camera rolling after the final scene ends. The deleted backup that wouldn't stay gone. A ghost file reappears with footage no one remembers shooting. You're combing through a cloned backup of the Veilworks media server, deep in the fragment sectors where only corrupted or overwritten files usually live. But this one isn't corrupt. It's resistant. File name finale alt take 77.move. It shouldn't exist. The records only listed 76 takes for the ending scene. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Because lost footage is safer when it stays lost. You open it. The timestamp marks it 3 hours after Rowan Fisk's official time of death. Camera wobbles as if handheld. Night vision kicks in. You're in the alley again, but it's empty now. No crew, no rigging, just one person, Kendra. She walks through the frame in slow, deliberate steps. She's not wearing the red coat anymore, just a sweatshirt, smeared at the wrist. Her eyes are hollow, but not panicked, not grieving, practiced. She stops mid-frame, looks off camera, and says, "You're still filming." A voice responds, Marlowe Rays. You recognize the cadence now. Cold, direct. We never stop. Then comes the sound. Faint. But it's there. A shutter. Click. She winces. Not like she's in pain. Like she's expecting it. And then she speaks again. But not to the camera. It doesn't matter now. He knew. They all knew. This was the only way out. You freeze frame the moment. Behind her, just over her shoulder, you spot a piece of paper taped to the alley wall, flapping faintly in the wind. You zoom in. It's a storyboard frame. Scene 20. Labeled Aftermath. Survivors. Optional. The page is torn along the top, like it was ripped from a binder. Same tear pattern as the missing scene from the script. Same handwriting. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You run one last forensic scan of the footage's metadata. Under Authoring Tool, there's no mention of editing software. Only one word, live. Everyone lies, especially the ones who pretend the camera turned off long after it already turned on, something they couldn't undo. The final interview that was never broadcast. A confession, whispered in the dark, reveals more than intended. You find the transcript locked in a dusty folder marked confidential inside the production vault. A never-aired interview between Rowan Fisk and Kendra Vale, conducted the day after the trial ended. The audio file is missing, but the transcript tells the story. Rowan, did you ever think this would go this far, Kendra? It had to. They wanted a story. And stories have endings, Rowan. But not everyone's alive for the final act. Kendra pauses. Some people don't get to leave the stage. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Because this isn't just an interview. It's a script reading, an admission, a goodbye. You cross-reference the transcript's metadata. The recording was scheduled for 2 weeks after Rowan's reported death, but the voice in the background, not Kendra's, a low chuckle, unmistakably Sebastian Vale. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You listened to the final lines. Sebastian, you played your part well. The audience is fooled. But remember, there's no rewrites in real life. Kendra good, because I don't want a second take. The transcript ends abruptly. No signatures, no date, just an empty space where the last words should be. Everyone lies, especially the ones who know the curtain falls only once and never for everyone. The forgotten detail that changed everything. The tiniest oversight unravels a story built on lies. You sit alone in the cold light of your desk lamp, sifting through pages, images, and recordings that have long haunted you. A case wrapped in layers of performance, deception, and orchestrated tragedy. And yet, here it is, the thread so thin, so easily missed. It nearly slipped past you. A forgotten taxi receipt, faded, smudged, time-stamped, 7:50 p.m. Issued not at the location he claimed to be, but at a diner 12 blocks away. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because this little slip rewrites the timeline. The accused said he took a cab to a friend's house after leaving the liquor store. The receipt proves he was elsewhere. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You check the license plate. The cab driver's report says he dropped off a man matching the accused's description, but the passenger's face was not him. You trace the cab company's GPS. The passenger was dropped off near the alley 5 minutes before the call reporting the body. You stare at the chain of lies, the rehearsed scenes, the hidden cameras, the silent witnesses. It all collapses under the weight of one small, forgotten detail. The perfect alibi. Never perfect. Everyone lies, especially the ones who trust that nobody's watching the little things.